What up, fam? Level 19 of my Black Falcon army. So I think it's time to build a castle. And it's taken me 19 levels to get to this point. But in case you haven't been following, I have a huge Black Falcon army, 2,000 at this point, in which 1,000 of them have already been showcased and are ready for war. I still have another 1,000 that I still need to separate and create units for. Now, currently in the stage of where my army is, we need to build a fortification that will withstand an enemy that is on the horizon. And with where this series is going, I need some backdrops. Now, there are a few things I need to consider prior to me putting bricks together. 1, how big will it be? 2, how can I make it modular? 3, how will I store this and travel with it? And 4, will it fit my Black Falcon story? So in case you're not familiar with the size of my room, it's really not that big, and I won't have a permanent location for the castle like I do my Lego Shelf City. Which answers another question in case you guys are wondering. My Black Falcon army isn't always staged. I have a few units that I do showcase in display cases, but the rest are ziplocked in bags separated by unit in a large bin. This will have to follow suit in the same direction. So the size of the castle is going to come to play later when I have to store and move it. So to be fair, without really knowing what I was going to be doing, I created this small wall to kind of gauge the size of how big this is going to be, start the storyline, and brainstorm different sections of what I'm going to make to add to this castle. It also helped me gauge how big this thing could possibly be and how big I actually want it to be. For now, this is going to be a Lego castle facade behind my Black Falcon army if I were to display it, which leads to how can I make it modular? Now, taking inspiration from the recent 3-in-1 medieval castle, as well as the older castle builds, I wanted to make this somewhat maneuverable and give me possible options of how I want to shape the castle whenever I see fit. Now, it would be cool to have a permanent space with a permanent structure of this castle, but due to the circumstances that I mentioned earlier, having this be modular actually helps me out. Plus, it gives me maneuverability if I really want to shape things in a different way, via actually making a new story, a diorama, or if I just get bored with a simple layout. Now, at this point, I've created 7 sections of this castle facade so far. The first section that I did build was a piece of the wall. The wall's not fully constructed at this point just because I wanted to convey a little bit of story before actually completing the entire build. Plus, I ran out of spare bricks. And by just building this section, I was able to take into account how much brick I was gonna need to order from Bricklink to include what kind of pieces that I think I'm gonna get an idea of what I want to use in certain sections. Now, I'm gonna be real, I made a lot of purchases on Bricklink within the past couple months to get to this point, mainly because I was trying to convey certain things that I wanted the build to look like, which some stores didn't have everything I wanted. I was trying to find the best deals of what I can get, as well as I might need later down the line. So as you can see with this wall, it is not fully built, but it will be like really quickly because I have all the pieces to be able to do this. And I kind of wanted to finish this section last. Oh, I forgot to mention, all these sections are on mills. Just because my Black Falcons are gonna be on mills plates, having these on mills helps me maneuver these sections around very easily, as they will help me securely attach them to each other. And to mirror this incomplete wall section, I did actually make a completed version just so I can have a balance if I wanted to place it with a corner or the gate of any kind, or any other section that I come up with. So as you can see, the wall is a very basic structure. It's not that tall, and in the end, I probably might make some of these taller than others, but for right now, this is going to be the base height for any wall coming out from a build. So after building the initial wall section, I did start building the gate, and really what determined the height of this thing was the portcullis. I did want a dropping gate, and taking into account that I want a big door, the portcullis is going to have to be just as big, if not bigger. So having to hide that within the gate was a challenge, but it did guide me to how big this whole section was going to be. And although basic in design, this was actually my practice of how I want to project my castle. So the first thing I wanted to take account was how to showcase depth. So looking at where the doors are located, the archways to kind of give it that more mimicked arch door look, and taking inspiration from the castles that are currently available, I was able to construct a mechanism that allows the portcullis to drop. But also, as I was building the portcullis, as I was building the gate, I didn't really attach it to almost the very end. So there were a couple key features that I wanted to be decorative as I was building this gate. And one key aspect of that was statues. There are currently 7 statues in this gate by itself. And after putting these together, I kind of wanted this to be a thing throughout the entire castle. I don't know. Maybe it's a Dark Age castle vibe that I get from it, but I think it's just really cool, even though in a siege, these things will probably get destroyed pretty easily. But if you're approaching the gate, your first thing you will see are 3 statues. In my mind, and I feel like I was able to capture this being a more elegant feel when you're actually walking through these gates. And as you continue to look up from the gate towers, you will notice that from the very beginning, they were just a long stick. And I really wasn't sure how I was going to kind of portray depth with it. And playing with this section kind of took me a minute to get to this point. I did know I wanted to have indented statuettes inside the wall instead of protruding outwards. I also added these Baroque stem pieces, which I actually had tattooed on my arm, as well as the wings to finish it off. Black Falcons, it makes sense. And then as you go up, you have the 2 towers that look out from the top gate. Now, the most difficult sections are the corner builds. I didn't want to make these blocky just like the gate. I did want it to have a round feel. Now, making it round was going to be a trial and error for me. I didn't want to take a bunch of 1x2s and cylinders and plates to perfectly make a round, stable section. Instead, I went with this panel look. It's not completely perfect when you encirculate the entire thing, but it does give that circular shape that I was trying to achieve. It is also fragile. Now, when building these corner sections, I started off with the left side. This was going to be my trial and error section, and when I actually got it right, I would implement what I've learned to be able to mirror it on the second corner. But the one thing I did want to ensure in the corner sections was being able to have a wall built off from 2 sides of the plate. So essentially, the hardest part was just the first 3 front panels. Once I was able to get all 3 of those, I was able to figure out the rest. And if you were to look at it from top to bottom, I was able to give more depth in the build as opposed to having this tall panel block. I continue with the banner flags as well as a statue build on the top of the tower, which continues the theme that I had in the gate. Now, internally, this thing's pretty hollow. They're put together by these plates that hold one panel to the other, and they're stacked on top of each other to kind of keep them secure. And I did this for a reason, because eventually I knew I was gonna have to travel with this and they're gonna have to come apart. So having it done in section panels like this actually prevents it from just being shattered if I were to put it away. Now, each one of these sections are built on a 16x32 base plate. I did take note of how my army is staged, as in if I were to have 6 base plates across for my army, it's gonna look weird if the gate is off center, just how I have my king and queen's guard, having 2 16x32 base plates on the side to kind of keep them in the middle. So with that in mind, I created 2 16x16 sections to be able to keep that gate in the middle if I have my army staged that way. So I decided to add a little color and add some guard towers / archer towers. And to be honest, if I was a siege a castle like this, I'd probably shoot a bunch of arrows of fire on it so that way it just blows up in flames. But I'm just going to use them as just sectional buildings that I kind of add to it. Now, I did want to have the same theme between both of these sections, but I didn't want them exactly alike. I did want to add some characters so that way not everything's monotonous or mirroring something on the other side. So I made a archer tower or guards tower where the knights can walk into, get a little shade from the sun, and kind of house some weapons, and archers can shoot from windows if they really needed to, especially if the wall is very long. And the second was just a smaller gate, which can act as the initial gate if I were to move the gate back to be the keeps gate. Both of them are going off the color scheme of the 3-in-1 medieval castle with the yellow and dark blue bricks and slopes. And if you were to expand your vision, it just adds a little pop to the entire build. And overall, if you kind of zoom out, you also see some areas where I've added rock work, so that way each section isn't exactly the same as its mirrored counterpart. And if I wanted to expand on just one side of it, I can kind of play with it. I could add new sections that just pop into my head that is not related to the wall. The list goes on. So I had to keep in mind of how I was going to store this castle and travel with it. The front gate is a solid beast, and if it were to come apart, it's easily fixable. Both corners come apart just so I can transport or store it. Each sectional wall can easily stack on top of each other, so that way it allows for more storage for these panels upon the side. The only concerned fragile sections are these statues, which can be put together very easily if I needed to do so at a later time. Now, these 16x16 base plates aren't really a concern, as I can stack them next to each other in between the walls. Now, traveling is going to be hard. I'm going to attempt to do it in a couple months, and if it shatters, oh well. And with having it being modular, being able to store it and pull sections out that I want to use, and where I want to go with this whole series is telling stories of my knights. Now, again, I've spent a lot of money of purchasing 2,000 Black Falcons from Lego's Pick a Build, as well as outfitting and arming them. so might as well have them do something cool. And right now, there is an enemy out in the horizon. So currently, this new unit of Black Falcons, which I'm calling the Black Helms because right now, Black Helmets are mainly available, are currently building this castle, while the standing Black Falcon army is currently encamped further out into the kingdom, getting ready for what is about to come. And with the army currently patrolling and training, getting ready for war, I still am recruiting 900 Black Falcons to get ready to defend these walls as well as add to the army. And if you look closely, you'll see a number of Black Falcon Falconers, which in a short, I did say that I was only going to get one. That didn't really happen. But I've given them their own unique hair pieces to kind of highlight friends that I'm going to be putting in this army. So these Falconer Knights have been assigned to protect and watch over this castle as these new Black Helms are constructing each section. Now they do have their own guard and fire watch on the side, but overall the Falconers have been kind of given the responsibility to look over this whole project before they're sent out beyond the Black Falcon realm looking for an enemy that's getting ready for war.